Hello everybody, welcome back to another very exciting video here on my channel. Another reading video, however, this is going to be a Bookmas video for the month of December, and I am so excited to go over all of these books sitting here in front of me. It is the month of December, Christmas is coming up, technically it's Jesus' birthday. It is the season of Jesus, except for you probably should be spending time with God and Jesus just in seasons. You should probably be trying to do it all year long. However, I am a Christian, but I still have faults. I have my own sins and faults that everybody in this world commits. Mine definitely is I don't pick up my Bible enough. I maybe pick it up 20 to 50 times a year instead of trying to do it at least 3 times a week or even once every day. I have been doing a lot better here recently with still trying to prioritize praising the Lord with actually just working out. I do that not just by working out, but when I do my Grow with Joe here on YouTube at home workouts, I try and put on 3 times a week different workouts that are praising God at the same time. Her version of spending time with God while also taking care of your body, your temple that He has given you. And those, I cannot describe how just working out feels so great, but the peace, the way I feel just using those workouts and actually pushing through, continuing, never skipping, in theory, never skipping a single day of working out, especially the praise ones. It is just such a beautiful blessing in a way, and truly spending time with God makes you so at peace, makes you so happy, makes you love your body, makes you just everything good comes from Him. And it's such a weird and hard thing to describe, but if you understand what I'm talking about, then you totally know. So one of the other ways, besides like I kind of mentioned, maybe going to church, which I don't believe that you have to go to church. Like if you skip church, it's not a problem. There are other ways to spend time with God. That's why I talked about the working out. Of course, reading your Bible, praying to Him, just talking to Him like you would your best friend. Another way I believe is reading books that pertain to Christianity or just maybe pertain to God in general. So in today's video, I do want to go over some of my favorite Christian books that I do recommend. All of these books I have on my shelf. I also have a physical TBR, a couple books, well, a lot of books technically, but 2 different books I'm going to say, because we have one book and then all the rest of the books are from the same author, and I've already read this author a couple times. We have a few that I'm going to read probably next year, not so much this year, and then I have all of the rest that I have already read, and it's a good variety too. It's not just like the self-help Christian books, it's actual stories and mysteries, Christian fiction. So without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into today's video. The first book I'm going to hold up is actually, I do believe, a nonfiction book. I read this when we were stationed in Wisconsin, so around 2019 through 2021. I might have been pregnant, so 2020 through 2021. I have forgotten a lot about the book, but to this day, I still really enjoyed this book, and also I rated it 5 stars once upon a time. It is The Gold of Exodus. This is about the true location, the true findings of Mount Sinai, and I thought this entire book was just so interesting to follow our main character, or potentially the author, through all of his discoveries. He went out and tried searching for Mount Sinai in a couple different theories, and they just didn't check out, and then he had one location that time and time again he kept finding facts or just things that went along with how it was in the Bible. To this day, when I look at this book on my shelf and or hear certain stories from the Bible or even think about Mount Sinai, I think back to this book. Like I said, I feel like I've forgotten a lot of it, but I still highly recommend this. It's also one that I just found the whole way through just very interesting. I wasn't bored with it, and I think the ending was so cool to get to the actual finding of Mount Sinai, and just some of the things that went on, also like them running and trying not to get killed while they were technically trespassing in foreign countries. I think it also took multiple years to find what he found because of the fact of like visas or passports, and then like I said, trespassing and trying to run away. The next book is actually a devotional, and this is another great way to kind of get like a daily just sit down with God, read a little passage or something revolving around Christianity, and then maybe just talk or pray with God. And I did this, I think, for the year of 2023, I do believe, because I think I started it when we were still in Vegas, but also I finished it when we had moved home. So it might have been 2023 to the beginning of 2024. And my husband's grandmother actually is related to this author, and this is why we ended up with this devotional, and it's my first ever devotional. It is called Walk on Water, a daily devotional for believers and educators by Deborah B. McDermott. I really enjoyed this. I took to this and highlighted so many things. I really thought some of these passages were just so interesting, and there's also some of her life story or just some things that kind of go along with it. I think once a month or at the end of the month, she kind of tells like a little story, but you still have your daily devotionals, and it was just so interesting. And some of the days I felt like I really didn't want to read. Like I just didn't want to get up and I didn't want to read this book. But by the time I was actually reading it and sitting down and spending time with God, I just felt so happy, so at peace. It's one of those that's very similar to when you go to church and you have something very specific happening in your life at that specific moment. And then the pastor somehow, without even talking to you, knows exactly what's going on. And he has this whole sermon based around how you're feeling. It's almost like God is projecting through the pastor to you. And that's how I felt at times with this, because I'm not gonna lie, 2024 was probably one of the hardest years for my husband and I, not like together, but just because we went from active duty, or my husband went from active duty military, and he was going to eventually go to the guard because he kept getting slapped with 2 different Koreas and he had a say no, and he went to go get out. He actually got medically denied for the guard up in Indiana. So after almost putting money in escrow for a house, we had our whole life flipped upside down. We had no clue what we were going to be doing next. So we ended up having to move in with family for just a couple months until we bought this house. And it was just one of those that every time that we thought we couldn't get beat up or beat down anymore, something else kept coming. There were so many things, so many punches per se, that kept happening to us. And some days I did not want to pick this up. I'm just gonna say that the passages that I was reading about were way too specific and way too relevant, which also was ironic because you technically are reading, she has the month and she has the date with it. So you would think that it's not like at random. It is at random, but you would think that if I'm going through a rough time, just because I'm on July 25th or whatever that passage was, I wouldn't read something that would pertain to my life. However, it's like God made it just so, and it just felt so weird, but also so great at the same time. I feel like this kind of helped me get through some of the things that kept happening to us, because when I tell you we kept getting hit, I'm not gonna lie. It was just one thing after another, and looking back, that year just feels so little, like it didn't really matter. But during the time, everybody kept telling us like how strong we were and just how they were so proud at how we were always just smiling and somehow getting through it all. And it didn't feel that way at the moment, but looking back, I can see that us as a married couple, we've really helped each other out and we made the best of it. And I think also behind us was, of course, God helping us. He did not let us have a terrible life. He blessed us even though we were going through really hard stuff. This author I'm going to hold up, I'm sure you guys know about him. He has written a couple different Bibles, or he's had different translation of Bibles. I think I have a study life lessons Bible from him, and it is actually Max Lucado's 6 Hours, One Friday. This was one that I didn't fully finish, but you kind of read like a normal Christian style, like I'm going to say self-help book, where you have a couple little devotionals and things that you can do. At the back of the book, we have where it's like different chapters and you kind of read a certain passage and then you can answer questions. And I didn't actually get to this section of this book just because I was doing my own version of trying to read the Bible a certain way. I eventually will probably circle back to this. However, the first half, it was one of those that was very inspiring. Some of the things he talked about was just like bringing the light out of the day, thinking about the positives, thanking God at the end of the day, even just telling him thank you. Thank you that I'm alive. Thank you that I made it through the day. Thank you that I got to work out. Just something so simple. There were certain lessons in here or passages that I feel like stuck with me at the time. They were very relevant to when I was reading this. However, looking back now, again, this has been multiple years because I was actually in Las Vegas. We were stationed in Las Vegas when I read this. So it's been a little bit, and there are some things I forgot about, but overall, I do recommend this as well. I feel like a lot of Max Lucado's books are very good. Growing up, when my mom always had Bible study, they always brought home Max Lucado's books, or a lot of them, not all of them, but there was always a lot of them. And when we would kind of go through them when I got older and stuff, I felt like they were a very good study guide or even basis to getting into the Bible or just learning how to do more of like the Bible study. And also this cover is so pretty. That's really the real reason why I even thrifted it or picked it up in the first place. Next, I have actually a series that I have not finished. I think there's 20 something books in this series and I only have 2. I did get this book once upon a time, the first book. I might have been around 7 or so when my mom got this book, and then eventually they got the second book, and maybe one day I'll go out and get more of these books. It is actually the Elsie Dinsmore series, book 1 and book 2. Book 1 is Elsie's Endless Wait, and then book 2 is Elsie's Impossible Choice. These are more fiction, I do believe, to a point, but I think it also follows a real character or a real person. And of course, you have the Christian values. There's things that happen. I can't remember what book in particular. If I remember correctly, she was not fighting with God, but almost like falling away from God, like having those doubts. And then there were things that kept reforming her, where she kept realizing like, hey, these doubts aren't really because of what I think. It's because of this happening to me. And God is not the reason why. It's actually because this is happening. This is here to strengthen me, or this is happening for this. And I love these books. I honestly wouldn't mind rereading these since I haven't read these since I was a kid. And like I said, collecting more. I feel like this style book, because I've seen like green and blue ones, I feel like maybe these would be good series to pick up if you're really wanting more of like a series Christian fiction following a main character, if not a strong character, if that makes sense. Next I have The Well by Mark Hall. If you do not know who Mark Hall is, he is from Casting Crowns. And the reason I actually picked this book up is because I was given, I think for Christmas, a CD from Casting Crowns. It was called Come to the Well, I do believe. It had Courageous and Come to the Well, and I think it looked like this, honestly. Like it had this cover on it. I was given that from my youth group leader for Christmas or one holiday, and it became, still to this day, one of my favorite albums ever. And also Casting Crowns is my favorite Christian music group. And in that little CD, they had at the back of it where you could go to Barnes or go to wherever and get this book for like $5. So I did end up picking it up. I think we actually went to Barnes and Nobles. It is The Well, Why Are So Many So Thirsty? This talks about like how without God, you are just always looking for something and you don't know what that is. But once you find God, it kind of starts to make sense. There's other things in this book. Again, this is more of like that Christian self-help type book. There were some questions, some passages at the end, but I think Mark Hall did a really good job on this book, and it's one that sat on my shelf for probably like 10 years before I ever got to it, since I picked it up when I was a kid and I didn't read it until 2020s. I really recommend this because it is so simple. It was so easy to get through. Some of the stories just in real life, basing some of the stories off of real life characters that he met, and then also referring to almost the identical person in the Bible. I thought it was so interesting, and just how some things played out and some of his questions, and then it kind of made you think like, what am I doing wrong in my life, or what can I change to better myself, to get closer to God, to try and be what he wants me to be. I don't know what else to say. I just really enjoyed this. And if you have not heard of them or have never heard of this album in particular, go ahead, check out Casting Crowns. I feel like you will not be disappointed. Then I have The Legend of Storey County. This technically is a historical fiction. However, when I looked up the genres, it did also say Christian fiction. I don't remember too much of the Christian plot, or I do kind of remember some things that the main character talked about revolving around Christianity, but I didn't feel like it was a very big plot or a very big genre of the book. However, this entire book I absolutely love. It is 5 stars. It's one of those that if I picked it up today, so many years later, I would love it and reread it and have such a great time. We have a reporter in 1938 who's going to this guy who has actually lived his life, and he kind of was a slave and he escaped and he did some other crazy things. Like this cover truly portrays how it was in my mind. I was watching a movie and some of the events that was happening, and how this reporter came to this guy asking questions, but he left feeling a different way after hearing this story was just so great. And I definitely recommend this book. This book was such a great 5-star read, and with it being around the 1860s and the Civil War, I felt like the historical fiction aspect of it was just really good. And I was very surprised when I looked it up and seen that it was also Christian fiction, but like I said, I could see some elements of it. I just didn't think it was like number 2 in the genre list. Either way, I am going to include it into this just because it did say that and I loved it. Why not talk about some of the books that I absolutely loved? And now we have another kind of like self-help book, but in a story format, and I'm sure you guys have all heard it, maybe even seen the movie. I have yet to see the movie, but I do own it. I just thrifted it on DVD, and you can find this book anywhere in thrift stores. This is where I picked it up from. I see them from a day-to-day basis when I go there, and it is The Shack. This story made me think about heaven, made me think about God, made me think about forgiveness. Totally different than how I ever thought about it before. And the way that our main character is dreaming in a way of meeting God, and God just purposely changes form because he's like, the main character believes that God is just like a male and white or this, or you know, just like this one image that we all have when we think of Jesus, or when we think of more so just God, we have like one image in our brain, and he thinks that. So God's like, well, let me be a black, heavier set woman come to you, let me be like this, and then the next time you see me, I'll be this age and young, or I'm gonna be a male the next time. Every time I felt like he just kept changing his appearance. And even though the guy was dreaming, or he thinks he was dreaming, I just found it funny because it's kind of like God's humor in a way. Like, he doesn't mind playing tricks on you. Not so much tricks, because that sounds bad. He doesn't mind having fun with you. And especially if you're going to be kind of stubborn, he's going to make the best of it. And some of the things that he was teaching our main character and just talking about, and then when he seen his daughter and then had to talk or go over the lesson of forgiveness because there is something that happens to his daughter, I think in like the first 2 chapters, I have no clue how I would feel, because now that I am I'm an adult and I have a kid, I'm a mother, I have one way that I would feel if anything happened to my kid. However, the forgiveness on this level was just something that, it was one that was so hard, because I was thinking, if anything happened to my kid, you know, you got your way that you would definitely be, and I don't think I could forgive. I think I would have a really hard time, but that's not what God wants you to do. He wants you to forgive and not necessarily be happy with what happened. Just forgive and move on from it and learn from it and grow from it. It'll make you stronger. And also, like I said, how heaven was described. Heaven in this book was described so like beautiful, but also so different. Heaven's supposed to be very beautiful, but my mind just kind of pictures like a bunch of bright white or like special memories in my mind. There's a lot of different things that I think about, but the way that it was being described in this book, I just thought was so nice. And I am so excited one day to get to the movie, watch the movie, and hopefully enjoy it. Probably maybe tear up a little bit just because of the beginning, but I definitely recommend this, especially since you can find these all day long in thrift stores. It is worth the read, and I hope in a good way it changes how you think. Next, I have a lot of books here, but they're all from the same author. These are mystery books with Christian values put into them and also like a subplot of romance. And we have 3 different series technically. If you've been to my channel, you already know what I'm gonna hold up, and I am so sorry. These are Colleen Coble books. These first 2 are a part of the Mercy Falls series. It's a trilogy technically. I've read the first 2. Then we have this trilogy in the middle, which is Hope Beach. I also read these. These were so good with the God, like Christian values. And then this is a start to, I think, a 4-book series, the Lone Star series. I did read this. This is the first book that started this all back when I was pregnant. And then just this year, I found these books, well actually this trilogy and then this first book in a thrift store, and I fell in love with her books again. I have always thought about these books, but in particular, they're mystery with a subplot of romance, but they have so much Christian value in these. I feel like the Mercy Falls series, granted this is my favorite one so far, I feel like these were really great with the Christian values. However, I highlighted and annotated a little bit in this Tidewater Inn, which is the first book in the Hope Beach trilogy, and I want to find my all-time favorite quote in this book because it was just so good. First off, some of the little quotes was, God always comes through. And then we're following, this is talking about our main character, our main male character. And he's like, I've never been able to talk to another woman about God so freely. God uses whatever means at his disposal to mold and shape us. God is in control of life and death and everything in between. We can drive ourselves crazy by thinking of all the what ifs in our life. The Bible teaches God first, then others, and then self. That was a good one because I feel like sometimes we get too caught up in our own self to give too much to the Lord. This is my all-time favorite quote from this book, and I feel like I've talked about it so many times when talking about this book. However, we have both our female main character and our male main character, and the male main character is like, let us pray together. And then it says, so she closed her eyes and listened to him pray for wisdom and discernment on how best to handle the family dynamics. No other person has ever prayed with her like this about concerns that matter to her so deeply. Her spirit bonded with his as they asked God for help. Like little things like that. This is where the quotes about God just come in clutch, especially with the subplot of romance, because it's Christian, so it's nothing too bad, but you're learning a friendship and then they're bonding half the time with faith, so it's just such a bigger and better bond and more like strong. And then you get the whole God aspect and the rest of it being a mystery, and I really enjoy her books and I highly recommend her. And I'm so sorry, like I said, if you've been to my channel, because I'm sure you guys are tired of me talking about her, but don't worry, because now we're gonna get into the books that I have left on my physical TBR that I know of that are Christian that I want to get to. And guess what? We have a bunch of books from Colleen Coble again. I have actually not too many books. I have the last book in the Mercy Falls trilogy. This is the last one I have yet to read, and I am so excited for this one. I have almost the last books in the Lone Star series. I have book 2 and also book 4, but they did not have book 3 when I was birthday shopping, so we're gonna try and find that one. I think I'm probably gonna order that from Thrift Books with my free book coupon promo code thing that they give out. And I am so excited to finish the series that started it all and see how much of God is in these books, because I haven't read Lone Star Sanctuary, like I said, since I was pregnant. So I don't remember if it has as much God as these other series I've been reading, but I know I'm gonna love it. Then we have a standalone called Strands of Truth. I just picked this up from a Goodwill for $1.99. It's a standalone. I feel like it's going to be amazing and fast-paced. And then also, I think we have another standalone. I just got this from my public library for 50 cents. It's called Alaska Twilight. Never heard about it. I don't even think I've ever really seen it, and it's not like her normal books that I at least have, or the normal series, so I'm excited to see. I'm sure this has God in it too. All of her books so far have always had God in them, so I am so excited about all of these and accomplishing these and sending these all out, and just having these on my shelf make me so happy. And then the final book that I'm going to talk about in this video, and also that's on my physical TBR, is actually a book that I got from my grandmother, or Josh's grandmother, but when she passed, it was one book that I picked up from her bookshelf, and it's called It's Not Supposed to Be This Way. Again, I kind of think it's like the Max Lucado type book where you're kind of reading like a self-help is what I call them. I don't honestly know what to call them, so I just kind of call them self-help books. It seems like you're gonna get some stories from the Bible, but at the same time, you're gonna learn more about yourself and maybe how to go about being a Christian, or just almost like the little things of how to go through grief, or how to go through forgiveness, loving others, trusting in others, sharing the word of God with them, just simple things like that. I am kind of excited about this book because it's been a while since I've read this type of book, and I think it's time that I honestly pick up one of these books and go back into it. And that is all the books that I want to talk about in this video. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you guys all enjoyed this video, and also I hope you got a few either good recommendations or some books that you maybe have read and you absolutely enjoyed them. And if this is one of your first Christian videos, you're just trying to kind of start, and maybe you're just trying to get into enjoying the Lord and his peace a little bit more, or just feeling him and his presence, then welcome to this place. I don't necessarily post a lot about Christian stuff on here, but I have had a couple different like Bible study videos and also Christian reads throughout some of my monthly videos. So if you want to subscribe and be a part of my YouTube community, I have tossed up the idea from time to time of doing more of a Bible study, more of like a breakdown when I work on my Bible. Like I said, I am kind of not necessarily falling away, but I just don't pick up my Bible as much as I want to. And I feel like doing a video is a good way to help me keep on track and build that habit, and also potentially get it out there for other people to see, for other people to enjoy. Or maybe if you're not understanding it, because I know I don't understand a lot of what I read from the Bible, maybe if that's the case, maybe something I say, if I understand the passage, will help you. But thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate every single one of you, and I hope to see you on another video here on my channel. As always, God bless.